Okay, hi, welcome to another podcast by Guaranteed PPC. I'm here with Jody Edgar of the Shopify Expert. Jody has some great knowledge about Shopify, and I wanted to ask him some burning questions about the state of Shopify today and how it affects people trying to make the most from their stores and, of course, ads as well. Hi, Jody.
Hey, Corey, how are you?
Great. So, first of all, if you want to introduce yourself and your background a little bit and let our audience know, how you got into learning so much about Shopify and know so much about it in general.
Yeah, absolutely. So, my history goes back until I was about 16 years old when I built my first website. This was in the early 90s when the web kind of just got started. I originally wanted to be a graphic designer, and then I got into the web and I realized I could make things interactive, and it kind of blew my mind. And then throughout my career, I started building custom softwares. So I would build email marketing softwares, or I would build shopping cart engines and stuff like that. And in about 2010, I came across this product called Shopify. And I'll be honest with you, when I saw it, I realized that I was not in the right business of building software, because this was infinitely better than anything that I could ever dream of building. But what I did find about it was a really good addition to my business, which was working with customers and figuring out exactly what they wanted to communicate. And so I started working with Shopify. I built their 1,000th store, so really, really early on. And then for the last 15 years or so, we've just been focused solely on building on Shopify, because I really believe that a good user experience is not just for the front end customer that is going to purchase something through your website, but also for the merchant who is running the store. I have a big belief that in order to succeed in today's world, it requires operational excellence. And Shopify is by far the easiest software that I have ever used in order to make it so that people who are starting a business can just click and go. And so, yeah, that's kind of my background. I run an agency where we help people figure out the limitations of their e-commerce business, and we help them grow throughout time.
Great. Yeah, Shopify is really, back in the day when I started out doing e-commerce sites back in 2005, it certainly was nowhere as easy as it is today. It's so easy a kid could do it when they're using Shopify. Really.
Couldn't agree more. Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, I have some questions I wanted to ask you here then. My first question I wanted to ask you, Jody, was the people who have the most success ranking their Shopify stores organically on Google, what are they doing differently than the rest of your clients, both on-site and then also off-site, if there are any secrets?
Yeah, the funny adage which is the best time to start a Shopify or website was 10 years ago, and the second best time is today. So having, a domain name that has been ranked and has had good content on it is the thing that drives the most success with SEO. Ultimately, there are 5 real things that we look at when we're talking about how to turn a website that might not be getting the kind of sales and expectations that they want into something that is proving that. So the 5 things that I generally look at first is, number 1, do all the buttons work, right? And so you want to go through and you want to audit your website, and you want to make sure that the person who is coming to the website, when they click on the buy button, does it actually take them to the checkout page? This seems really, really simple when you're starting off, but as you build websites and as you build more complex systems, it's actually very easy to break something and not realize that you've broken it. So that's step number 1, is you got to make sure all of the buttons work. The other piece of that is the reason why this helps with an SEO piece is that Google is watching the interactions that are happening on the website. So good user experience of what it's like to browse through the page. Are people looking at the images? Are they reading through the text? Are they pausing over top of areas of interest? All of those combine to make a better rating for your SEO. So SEO is number 3 in that list. The second piece of this, and this is honestly the most important piece after you get all the buttons to work, is the speed. It's got to load quickly. And often what we find is that people are like, yeah, my website loads super quickly. And they haven't even thought about what it's like for somebody on a mobile platform to go and load their site. So most people are testing their website on a desktop computer, probably connected to a fiber connection, having a process in there that can render the JavaScript super quickly. So they're not experiencing what it's like to load up your website on a mobile phone. So with a mobile phone, you have slower processors, you have a worse internet connection, you have a lot more interference with just lines of sight and stuff like that. And the thing that I often recommend people try out is they load their website in an elevator. While you're in the elevator, you need to work on improving the speed, because honestly, the length of the elevator ride is all you have to grab someone's attention. So first three, got to make sure the buttons work. Second, you got to make sure it's fast and it's loading quickly. Third, you got to make sure you've invested in SEO, because that's the only place on the internet that you're going to get leveraged traffic for free. As you know, with PPC, you have to pay for every click that comes through, or every 1,000 clicks, right? With SEO, you can spend the money to get the backlinks and get the traffic places, but you don't have to pay for every user that's coming through. So I look at SEO as kind of like a long-term investment on your business. Now, it's not something that you can turn on right away. It takes a year. It takes 2 years in order to really see results from that. But the benefit of that is once you get that going, you basically have a business that's going to continue to run forever. And then the final two, and these are the things that like add the 1 or 2% to it: customer experience. So how people are using your website, using software like Clarity, for example, to look at the heat maps of where people are spending time. And the last one is customer journey. What are people going through when they find your website all the way to when they leave a review? And making sure that that journey is as pleasing as possible for the customer. And that's what's going to drive reviews, it's going to drive referrals, it's going to drive your business to become a business that people want to share with their friends.
Great. There was a book that I read when I first started out doing internet marketing back in 2005. My business partner introduced me to, called Don't Make Me Think, and they still have that book in print. And really what that book teaches you is to essentially try to think about your website in a way that makes the user not have to think about what their next action is, and make it intuitive, so to say. This is just the foundation of making money online, using in e-commerce, running your Shopify store. I highly recommend checking that book out. But you're right, and for that matter, I think people get lost in the technicals of SEO, and really the foundation of it, especially nowadays, is just understanding that Google's just going to watch what users are doing, and are you doing a better job to cater to their users than the other people that are ranked on Google now in your
Absolutely.
market? And if you are, they're going to want to promote you, and it's really that simple. And if you try to force your way to the top and you still don't have those fundamentals in place, I mean, it's basically useless or pointless at the end of the day. And so I would really be looking into that. At a fundamental level, you got to do that right. One follow-up question I did have quickly about in reference to load times. A lot of people think, and including myself, that with Shopify, your website's going to load fast because it's Shopify, and they don't really have to think about anything. If you find your website does load too slowly, I mean, what are the main things you can even do? I thought that you can't really do anything because it's Shopify and they're in control of that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really excellent question. So it's just complicated because there's so much of Shopify which you don't have access to that they're managing on their back end, right? As far as like a capacity point of view, you're never going to be in a position where Shopify has run out of capacity. They're always going to be able to process your orders and you'll be able to check things out. Something that you would probably run into if you were on like a shared hosting with WordPress or something like that. However, what you can do from a speed point of view, there are two key factors of this. So when you're running a speed test, right? The speed test is not just how much data you're transmitting, it's also looking at the average user that's coming to your site. So if you are getting a lot of traffic from, say, overseas, and it's just a longer distance that people have to transmit that data, Google is going to look at that ranking, and this is mostly in reference to SEO, but it's going to look at that speed score, and it's going to rank you farther down in the listings, because Google looks at the speed of which you are presenting your store to your customers as a metric for how well your user experience is. As far as like what you can actually change on the Shopify platform, you have three real places where you can change it. Number one, you can remove apps. So this is a little, and the reason this is a little bit complicated is because it's changed over the years. Originally, when Shopify started their apps, you would install code manually into the theme. So you'd copy some embed code, you put it in there, it would load. Recently, Shopify has upgraded that process, so now you click and they install the code. The bonus to that is when you remove an app, they can remove the code. Now, if you have a Shopify store that is a number of years old and you haven't upgraded to Online Store 2.0, which is 2021, somewhere around there, they launched that. It's very possible you could have leftover code that got installed on your website for apps that you're not even using. So going through your code and auditing to make sure that all of the code that you have put in there is actually being used is number one. The second thing you can do is you want to look at the customer journey of where they're going through it, right? Often, most customers try and put every single thing that they're trying to sell on their homepage. And what that ends up doing is it's like trying to put all of the books in your bookstore right at the front door, right? You have to make it quick so that people come in and trust that they're going to follow through the journey. And so what that means is like you might not necessarily need to have your chat icon right on your homepage, right? Like you may want to just have your chat bot on the product page where someone is going to go and answer the questions. Or you may want to push it back to the support page so that if people do actually need support, they can go to your chatbot to pull that. Instead of like what the normal thing is people do, they go and install the app, they add it to all of the pages on their website, and they do that for all apps. And so what you end up getting is an experience where someone loads up your website on a mobile phone. You got chatbots, you got email pop-ups, you've got cookie approvals, and it's just a giant mess. So this is why like you want to have a look at the user experience and going through it. So those are the two major things that you can do. The third and final thing is you can throw money at the problem. And the way you do that is by upgrading to Shopify Plus. When you upgrade to Shopify Plus, you get access to a Cloudflare Edge network, which is not available for regular Shopify merchants. And what this does is it takes your assets and it pushes them to the edge faster than what it would if you were on Shopify. So if you go and update a photo on your homepage, right, and it has yet to be propagated across a CDN, Shopify Core can take 3 or 4 hours to do that. But if you're on Shopify Plus, they're going to prioritize your content, obviously, because you're paying more for it, and you're obviously of a brand that requires that type of information. You're gonna get a much better result by being on Shopify Plus. So those are like the three things that people can do in order to do it. Or you can remove the number of content you have on your site.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Well, appreciate that feedback. I'll put that. I'll definitely be using that in the future, especially when talking with our clients. Okay. So Jody, I have a question, kind of more so pertaining to ads, since our viewers are on our channel to get advice on how to make their ads work better. With that said, tracking's the backbone really to making ads work. It just has been for a while, and especially today. And for that matter, people wonder, including myself, not being a Shopify expert, what is the best way to track conversions on Google and Facebook and Microsoft on Shopify itself? What would you say in simplistic terms is the best way to do that? Is it an app? Is it to use the Google app itself?
Yeah, so I mean, this has changed over time. Shopify is constantly iterating and improving their software. At current time, in 2025, the best way to do this is use the native apps that Shopify provides. So that's the Facebook app, I think it's called Facebook Meta app, there's the Google YouTube app, and then there's the Microsoft Bing app. And what this allows you to do is Shopify will take care of all of that configuration in the back end for you. All you need to do is log into your account and authorize it to work with your store, and that's all that you need to do. What can get complicated is a lot of the help documentation out there is really designed for platforms that are not a SaaS platform. They're designed for like WordPress or Magento, where you have to copy and paste conversion code in, or you have to install Tag Manager and stuff like that. And so what I have found is that can be very confusing to people who are just starting out, especially if they're used to the other way of doing it. It's almost like you have to unlearn those skills. So it's install the app, make sure that it's configured with the same email address that is an administrator on that account. And so, what can happen is sometimes customers can send you an invite to, say, Google Analytics, for example, and you're set only up as a viewer, and you authorize the app as a viewer. Well, you're not going to be able to get click data from that because it's not going to be able to write back to Google. So it's really about making sure that your permissions are lined up, as well as you're using the native apps that they have supplied. Avoid doing anything fancy is kind of the boilerplate answer to all of this. And then if you're going to be doing any like Google Tag conversion type stuff, all of that has to be done inside of Tag Converter. Inside of the Tag dashboard that Google provides. So if you do have specific click events that you want to fire off, you can set all of that stuff up inside the app. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So essentially use the native apps instead of the third-party apps. And if you're going to use, and if you are tracking stuff, like the exotic stuff, like maybe Taboola, AdRoll, you're going to want to use the Tag Manager itself.
To do it, yeah. The only other exception to this is if you're using Google Marketplace. So, and the Google Shopping piece is really, really finicky when it comes to your GTIN numbers and your SKU numbers and stuff like that. And if you're dealing with large catalogs, right? Like, so you're a company that's selling 30 or 40,000 SKUs and stuff like that. There's another app that you can use that works as an intermediary between your Google Merchant Center and your store. It's called Simpros, and what it does is it cleans your data feed. So, going back a little bit, if we're talking about fundamentals, you really want to make sure that the data that's been put into your website is accurate and it's maintained. That's like the fundamental thing. But if you're getting data from like an export or something like that, and it doesn't necessarily have it all cleaned and it's too manually intensive to go and change it, that's when I would say using Simpros as an intermediary to clean up that feed so that it actually goes into Google, because Google will reject anything that doesn't line up perfectly.
Simpros, okay. Yeah, I was also wondering about that as well, because some people like it, some people don't. But I anticipated that that was the better route to go. So I appreciate you clarifying that as well for our audience.
For sure.
Okay, Jody, so my other question I wanted to ask you here today was in reference to Shopify Plus. And I know you touched on this in terms of site speed itself and server propagation itself, at least. And with that said, Shopify Plus, a lot of people think it's obscene, the price that they're charging, an extra $2,000 a month for Shopify Plus, even if they're, our bigger clients that are doing 5-10 million a year or whatever already, they're like, well, why do I need this? And, I've got my reasons, of course, about, the audience propagation. You can do retargeting for users that you can't do with basic cookie-based retargeting, which allows you to only retarget some of your site viewer visitors itself. But what would you say, is it worth it, first of all, to get Shopify Plus for all users? And what is the biggest kind of wins that you've seen that your clients have gotten with it?
Yeah, this is a great question. I would say the first thing to do, take a step back and think about what is the fundamental differences between what they call Shopify Core, which is basically Shopify, Shopify Grow, and Shopify Advanced, I think are the name of their three services, and then Shopify Plus. And having that context, knowing that Shopify Plus is designed for enterprise level businesses that are looking to replace their existing infrastructure. So say you're a business and you're running a Magento store, and the person that is running your Magento store is $150,000 a year just to do the maintenance and the management of that system. It doesn't automatically come with plugins for Apple Pay or Google Pay or any of that security stuff. Making the transition to Shopify Plus makes perfect sense because you're going from what is $150,000 a year to basically $48,000 a year. So in that type of industry, yeah, Shopify Plus is an easy win. However, if you're a business that has started off and bootstrapped from the ground up, and you're like, well, I used to pay Shopify $30 a month, and I was able to sell a bunch of stuff, and I did $2 million a year, why do I need to go to Shopify Plus? This really comes down to two main things. Number one, it's where you want to go with your business. So if you want to grow your business and you want to take advantage of all of the different new things that are coming out, all of that stuff lands in Shopify Plus before it lands in Shopify Core. So some of these examples are, there's a software called Shopify Flow, which allows you to automate things inside of Shopify. So if someone buys something and they're tagged with a particular tag, you can have automations fire off of that. For a long, long time, that was only available in Shopify Plus, and it was a reason for people to upgrade to it so that they could improve their automations. But as Shopify comes up with new features, they roll those features down into Core, and then the new features go into Shopify Plus. The other piece of this, and this is really comes down to a financial decision, is when you're using Shopify Payments, you can unlock lower transaction costs when you get to Shopify Plus. So on Shopify Core, on the advanced level, you probably can get around 2.4% transaction fees. And if you're doing about $2 million a year in revenue, it makes financial sense just to go to Shopify Plus because you're going to be paying less on those monthly transaction fees, especially as you scale up. So ultimately, when I'm talking to merchants on whether or not they should go with Shopify Plus, you want to have a look at is there APIs or is there technical reasons where we absolutely have to have access to this system? One of those common ones that we talk about is the discounts API. If you want to generate discounts on the fly, you need to be on Shopify Plus in order to do that. So go through, do a technical review first. If you clear all of those things, you're like, actually, we don't need Plus for any of the technical reasons. Well, then let's have a look at where you want to get to, where you are now. What is your roadmap plan for 6 months, 12 months, and does it include some of those features that are now available in Plus? If so, it makes sense to make the leap and go to Shopify Plus. And then finally, look at it from a financial point of view. Is we're doing X amount of revenue a year. It's costing us this much in transaction platform fees. It would be better for us to go to the higher level and cut back that fees, because even though we're only paying a fixed fee of $300 a month or $389, going to $2,000 seems like a big jump, but you might not have considered, the credit card fees are costing you $3,000 or $4,000 just based on that small percentage. So those are kind of the major drivers around Shopify Plus. If you're a business that needs to have a lot of autonomy around the users, and you're looking to open up multiple expansion stores. So again, looking at where you're going, if you're going to be saying, hey, we're going to open up in Canada, we're going to open up in the US, we're going to open up in Australia, we're going to need to have different shipping profiles for each one of those. We're going to need to have different inventories for each one of those. Shopify Plus makes sense because you can get additional Shopify stores for no additional cost, right? So you can get up to 10 expansion stores underneath one brand, which makes it easy for you to go and add those regional stores in there. So, I know I covered a lot of things, the differences between the two, but it really comes down to having a conversation around what is the needs of your business to choose which platform is best for you, not just necessarily what the cost is per month.
Okay, great. Yeah, I didn't know a lot about too much about most of the stuff that you had mentioned, so I'm glad I asked you that question. Like I said, basically about 25% of your users, if you're doing basic Google retargeting, you're not going to retarget because they're on browsers that don't accept cookies. And Shopify has users' email addresses because, they're Shopify users itself. And then they're able to import those email addresses essentially to Google. And then you're doing targeting on a whole different level there. And so you're open to... you can retarget more of your audience, which retargeting is very important just to get ROI on ad traffic, and then also, getting the full value out of organic traffic, referrals, all that you're getting. The other thing that I know that Shopify Plus also offers is better support, and then the more better phone support. But with that said, you had mentioned about switching over from a Magento, something like that, or maybe a WooCommerce to Shopify, and how that cuts down on, and I said the same thing. I tell clients, if you're talking about getting into one of these other platforms, you better have a full-time developer on staff, because it's going to break and you're going to need somebody that's familiar with the platform, that's already been managing it over time. Otherwise, it's going to be a rat's nest eventually. And also, it's going to need upgrades that Shopify does, so you're getting your money's worth with Shopify. But with that said, the one thing that I've always said was that Shopify, at least with these other platforms, you can do pretty much, the sky is the limit. It's an open source platform. You can customize it as you want. Shopify is a closed platform, and which has its own benefits. In and itself, things are more battle tested because there's not so many variables going on with the platform. But would you say that Shopify has fixed most of that problem to where you can essentially do anything that you can do with the WooCommerce site on Shopify?
Yeah, I would say that, because there's Shopify, the platform that you are familiar with, where you can manage everything through there. Shopify also has a headless experience, right? So like, if you want to build from the ground up and just use Shopify as your back end infrastructure, you can absolutely go and do that. We use headless often when we're building out specific landing pages for AdWords campaigns, right? So we would build a headless landing page, which really can be super fast. It can be highly focused on the exact target of what you're going to be doing, and it doesn't include any of the overhead that comes in from Shopify, right? So like on the Shopify CMS, you're going to have overhead for user management, you're going to have cookie control, you're going to have all of these things that they put in there in order to make the user experience better for the regular consumer. But if you're like, hey, I want to handle absolutely everything myself, that's when you would want to go over to their headless installation. And the great thing about that is all orders flow into the same dashboard. So even though like your front end people are going to be building something different, your operations people just have to learn one platform and go from there.
Very interesting. I didn't know about this headless experience. I'm not a developer, so I never had an opportunity to learn about this. So I'm glad I asked you that as well. So
yeah, headless has had an interesting life cycle. I remember, first hearing about it 5 or 6 years ago. There was a gentleman at a Shopify conference, and he was talking to people about headless. And I'm not kidding you. Everybody at Shopify there thought that he was talking gibberish, that didn't make any sense. And I'll be honest, it took me 2 or 3 years to figure out why it was such a better system for a specific use case. And it wasn't until Shopify had invested a bunch of time and energy into a company that they bought called Remix, which allowed you to actually build headless much easier than what you used to have to do, that it now made sense for the developers to start using these headless types of builds. The benefit to it as well is like you can have almost practically unlimited headless builds, right? Like, so you could build a purpose-built headless experience for a kiosk in a store, and it'll be a specific experience. And then you can have a different headless experience for like a pop-up shop that you're going to be doing that is, say, at like a music festival or something like that, where people would be entering in their orders there. And it can all run from the same central place. And yet at the same time, you can run your online store like you normally would. So it gives you almost infinitely customizable features. However, the development skill to do it is a lot higher. So, headless is not like a, you just click and install and follow the wizard. You do need to understand coding. You do need to understand routing and server stuff. And I mean, that's what keeps me employed, because that's what we can help merchants do.
Okay, I appreciate that follow-up, Jody. So you guys that are more technically challenged, you might have to get a really good developer on your team to switch over to that. But with that said, I think we are out of time here. Jody, do you want to tell us about where viewers can find you and learn more about your business and yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like you, I have a YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/howtoshopify. There I make weekly content on everything from business consulting all the way to Shopify tutorials. If the users want to connect with me, I run an online community called Expert by Monday. So expertbymonday.com/community will take you to the community. You can sign in there, and then I give calls and consulting on that as well. So if you wanted to connect with us there, you can do that as well.
Okay, great. Jody, well, thanks for coming. I think this conversation was very, very useful, not only to our audience, but just to myself as well. So thank you very much.
It was a great pleasure. Thank you for having me.